In the dark side of criminal history, a tale exists that has shifted the world's perspective through a darker lens. This is the story of Gabriella Gonzalez, a young woman whose life was tragically cut short because of harsh domestic violence and strict abortion laws in Texas. Brace yourselves, for this video will uncover the puzzling and disturbing details of her story. Find out about what happened before her untimely death, the societal factors involved, and the large impact this case had in this crime documentary. At the beginning of her tragic fate, 26-year-old Gabriella Gonzalez had long carried the responsibility of taking care of her 2 daughters and a son on her own in the largest landlocked metro area in the United States, Dallas. She managed her job, household chores, and childcare responsibilities, making sure that her 3 children were well provided with food, clothes, and above all, love. For that motherly devotion of Gonzalez, her relatives had always admired her. But while Gonzalez was a wonderful and responsible mother alone, the support she needed as a single mom truly needed to come from having a life partner to care for her and her children. And in the late months of 2022, this seemed to have been granted when she entered a relationship with a 22-year-old man named Harold Lavance Thompson. Their journey began positively, just like any other love story. The two dated to get to know each other, and their every day spent together tended to be more convincing when Thompson knew that Gonzalez had 3 children with her. He professed his love and made a promise that he would take good care of her and her kids. However, beneath the expected, joyful, and secure life, trouble unfolded due to Gonzalez's choice to live with Thompson. Despite being younger than Gonzalez by 4 years, little did she know that Thompson had a dark side. As days passed, their relationship became a tapestry woven with pain and suffering. Thompson beat her up multiple times whenever he was in a temper. Worse, he even took her phone, dictated every single thing in her life, and didn't even let her talk to anyone. It was suspected that since Gonzalez had kids from a different relationship, Thompson was very jealous of her ex-boyfriend, the kids' father. It wasn't only physical violence that scarred her experience. Emotional torment was evident too, making Gonzalez gradually lose her self-esteem as a woman. The once vibrant and lively, lovingly Gabby could only stand as a mere shadow of her former self. The warmth in her eyes vanished, replaced by the constant fear that oppressed any glimmer of hope for her and her children's better life. Her deteriorating physical, emotional, and social transformation showcased the destructive power of the cycle of abuse Gonzalez endured with Thompson. The mother of 3 had been thinking of separating from her abusive partner for a considerable amount of time, and she would frequently open such things up to her sister, Melanie Rubio. However, her concern about potential retaliations against her and her family had held her back from taking any action. But in the shadowy corners of her harrowing tale, Gonzalez's family were silent witnesses. The physical scars that covered her body, along with her frequent isolation, bore a silent testament to the horrors she endured. Unfortunately, despite knowing that she was no longer all right, the family didn't know how to help her in a way that no one would get hurt. Hence, the family's course of action just involved conducting a quiet observation. More days, weeks, and months passed for the domestic abuse to persist within their so-called home. Until a day in March 2023, Thompson choked Gonzalez and threatened her that he would harm her, including her 3 innocent children. But instead of oppressing her more, a small shred of bravery cast light on the overwhelming gloom of Gonzalez. Driven by the aim to escape, Gonzalez bravely left and approached the Dallas police together with her sister and their mother. She recounted the nightmarish experiences she had suffered. Because her voice was trembling in fear, the authorities instead gave her a pen to write down her pleas. That affidavit which the Associated Press acquired, urged Thompson to face domestic violence charges since Gonzalez, the victim, informed the police that he had physically assaulted her by strangling and punching repeatedly throughout their entire relationship. But beyond the assault, the brave endeavor even led them to discover a bone-chilling truth that Harold Thompson was well acquainted with the sinister practice of cruelty. The man Gonzalez had fallen for had a history of illegally carrying armed weapons in both 2021 and 2022. Strangely enough, these charges had ultimately been dismissed. In the same month, Thompson arrived at the authorities to address the allegations. However, rather than confessing, he asserted that he found it hard to believe charges were being brought against him for an offense he had no knowledge of. During an interview with Dallas police, Thompson contended that Gonzalez had physically engaged with him, suggesting that there might have been an altercation where he responded by striking her in return. Thompson categorically refuted the claim of choking her and went so far as to reveal Gonzalez's pregnancy with their child. The family thought that their documented cry for justice would finally serve as a shield for Gonzalez to prevent Thompson from bothering her anymore in any possible way. But all their pleas fell upon deaf ears as the authorities in Dallas did not pursue further investigations into the accusation. Following the report in March, Rubio and their mother attempted to contact the Dallas police multiple times to follow up, but their efforts went unanswered. Due to the lack of progress in the case last March 2023, Gonzalez found herself compelled to remain in touch with Thompson. However, striving to free herself from an abusive relationship became way more struggling when she discovered that she was pregnant, and she knew that Thompson was indeed the father of the child, since he is the only man Gonzalez had been involved with. Even though Gonzalez was already carrying their own child, she kept facing domestic violence at Thompson's hands. About a month later, Gonzalez decided to submit another affidavit to obtain Thompson an arrest warrant after he tried to get more aggressive towards her. This affidavit is dated April 14th, and there, Gonzalez explained more detailedly the disturbing history of domestic abuse she had gone through for months. Here are some of the incidents Gonzalez bravely documented against Thompson. A frightening event last January 2023 when Thompson attacked her and hit her severely that marked visible bruises across her body. And a similar incident in November 2022 when Thompson hit her and gave her a black eye. Gonzalez disclosed that amidst the severity of her situation, she held her mouth from reporting to anyone about them before, as Thompson used to give her life-alarming threats. Her detailed statement on the occurrences of family violence was filed officially with an irresistible backup when Gonzalez submitted photographic evidence showing the physical impact of the abuse. But in spite of the charge's weight, along with the evidence presented, Thompson was still not put behind bars. The more heartbreaking part is that the never-ending cycle of abuse made Gonzalez see her pregnancy not as a blessing, but as a misfortune that would bind her more tightly to the unborn child's father, her oppressor. This was how the past experiences of being manipulated by her partner affected her psychology. It prompted her to fight for autonomy over her body, as she felt that it was long stolen from her. At that time, Gonzalez was already in her vulnerable state, until she began pondering the option to get rid of the growing life inside of her. For abused women like Gonzalez, there's no better choice than choosing to end the pregnancy to protect themselves from a violent individual who had always been controlling their lives. At that desperate time, Gonzalez's mind was set that she would not give up her own life for a child who would likely just cause her to remain involved with her abusive partner. Although she still had a heart for her own child, she understood that refusing to abort it would subsequently reduce her ability to break free from her wicked relationship. However, Gonzalez faced another hurdle upon learning that Texas had completely outlawed abortion, given the state law enacted in 2022. As of September 1st, 2021, abortion had been pronounced illegal in Texas once the embryo's cardiac activity could already be detected. About a year later, on August 25th, 2023, a worse abortion law took effect that declared a comprehensive ban on abortions. It has expectations, yet only when the mother's life was in danger. The good thing is, Texas still allows its residents to undergo the process in another state. Hence, Gonzalez continued seeking options in other places where she can access abortion. There, she learned about the pro-choice state of Colorado, which is one of the nearest states to Texas where abortion is legal in all terms of pregnancy. On May 9th, 2023, Texas resident Gonzalez pursued her travel to Colorado. It was kind of a risk, since Thompson had no idea of her escape nor her decision to abort. But as Gonzalez moved closer to her aimed state, all she could think of was at last, she was bound to regain control over her body and commence a brighter future. On the night of May 9th, 2023, Gonzalez immediately went back home to Dallas. It was a successful trip to Colorado, as she was able to terminate the pregnancy. Confident that Thompson no longer had any advantage to use against her, Gonzalez turned even more determined and stronger to get away from his control after enduring a 4-month violent connection with Thompson. But a surprising revelation tainted her relieved arrival. Thompson had already found out that Gonzalez went through abortion after being nowhere to be found during the entire day. The former father-to-be could not be more devastated as, in spite of their relation's brutal nature, he still desired to have that child with Gonzalez. Thompson had always thought of the child as a golden key to Gonzalez's further submission to him. Fortunately, Gonzalez had already suspected Thompson's awareness. Thus, she tried to avoid him to the best of her ability. Tragically, the culmination of these intricate circumstances unfolded on May 10th, 2023, mere hours after Gonzalez's return from her out-of-state trip to terminate the pregnancy. At 7:30 a.m. on Wednesday, near a gas station on the 800 block of South Walton Walker Boulevard in Dallas, Texas, Gonzalez came across Thompson in a parking lot. What first ensued between them was a heated argument concerning Gonzalez's dishonesty about the abortion. During the tense altercation, Thompson physically restrained Gonzalez in a chokehold. Gonzalez managed to break free from his grip, yet found herself in a life-threatening situation, as Thompson produced a firearm and shot her in the head. The initial gunshot caused Gonzalez to collapse, but Thompson continued to fire several more shots, tragically ending her life. Thereupon, Thompson quickly left the scene on foot. Gonzalez's sister, Rubio, had already witnessed her sister and Thompson walking together just before the shooting occurred. Rubio noted her surprise at this sight since Gonzalez had been driving a rental car at that moment, but she just decided to proceed past them. Moments later, she heard gunshots just within the vicinity of where she last saw her sister. Rubio, swiftly suspecting that Gonzalez might be involved, she glanced back after the sound. Her fears were then confirmed as she witnessed Gonzalez lying on the ground, surrounded by blood. Rubio was immensely shocked that she could not even proceed towards her sister's body. The witness tried everything she could at the scene to save the victim, but unfortunately, she was incapable of calling for help, as she did not have her cell phone with her during the shooting incident. On the evening of May 10th, officers with the Dallas Police Department responded to the crime scene. Due to the severe injuries sustained by the victim and a significant amount of time elapsed, the authorities declared Gonzalez dead on the spot. Surveillance footage had captured the tragic scene in its entirety from nearby buildings, which had served as a corroborative backup for Rubio's statements as the primary witness. Subsequently, a second unidentified witness emerged in the court recordings, testifying about the alleged shooting. This individual had reported to the police that they had observed Thompson placing Gonzalez in a chokehold just moments before the fatal shootings had occurred. With all these, it didn't take long for the final affidavit to be submitted to secure an arrest warrant for Thompson. After the affidavit had been released, Dallas police conducted a thorough investigation into Gonzalez's murder. Her family believed that her tragic fate was motivated by Thompson's revenge for her decision to abort their child. Thompson was apprehended on Friday, May 12, 2023. He had been charged with first-degree murder for unlawfully taking the life of the 26-year-old woman. He was as well charged with assault on a household member by the breathing obstruction linked to Gonzalez's death. To date, Thompson has been imprisoned in Dallas County Jail without bond, and there are currently no updates on whether he is already found guilty or not. Nevertheless, the impact of this incident is beyond more than Thompson's apprehension. The case revealed potential shortcomings in how Texas authorities deal with cases of domestic violence. As news about the incident spread across the internet, netizens began to raise concerns about how effective the system was in keeping victims of violence safe during crucial times. The dark cloud covering this tragic tale has been visible for a long time. It can be recalled that about 2 months before her murder, there had been a domestic violence report filed against Gonzalez's abusive ex-boyfriend. This report for March 2023 should have served already as a warning sign that demanded immediate attention. But despite how serious the report is, the Dallas police had taken so much time to respond and follow up. The same pattern even repeated in April when Gonzalez pressed charges anew. The heartbreaking irony had lain in the fact that better communication and coordination might have potentially prevented the impending catastrophe. Even if immediate custody had been feasible for Thompson, the protective measures in place for Gonzalez had seemed sadly inefficient. Given the evident warning signs, Gonzalez had borne visible marks of abuse, like painful tattoos, serving as tangible reminders of her distress. Her voice had always quavered whenever she had been expressing her apprehension for her safety and that of her family. This stark disparity between the obvious threat and the available level of protection underscored the glaring inadequacy of law enforcement's ability to rapidly and effectively shield domestic violence victims. Thompson's legal journey had been marred by a perplexing failure to detain him. Astonishingly, he had prior charges for unlawfully carrying a weapon in 2021 and 2022. Yet he had remained a free man, leaving individuals like Gonzalez exposed to his anger. The grounds behind this disconcerting failure had remained veiled in mystery, shedding light on the decision-making process within the law enforcement framework. Why hadn't Thompson been taken into custody for these serious charges? What criteria had been employed to assess the potential danger he had posed to Gonzalez? These pressing questions echoed within the minds of those seeking answers. A chilling motive ran through this tragic tale when Gonzalez decided not to have their baby. This thing they had in common connected Thompson's aggression to her decision. This could have made the authorities worried, but they failed to see it. They didn't take the increased danger seriously. So the story changed from isolated events to a repeated pattern, a legacy of tragedy, and the broader societal implications. The ripple effects of Gabriella's untimely death are profound and far-reaching. Her family, whom she's very close and loving with, is devastated, and the situation is worsened by the fact that her 3 children are now motherless. The absence of a mother can cause strong emotional and mental effects on these children, resulting in emotions like sorrow, unhappiness, and a feeling of emptiness. And these feelings can influence their emotional health and growth. But beyond the grief, Gonzalez's story highlights several societal impacts that arise when gender-related domestic violence intersects with reproductive freedoms. In the tale explored, it can be seen how those 2 crucial issues came together. Gonzalez's account shows how violence based on someone's gender can hinder a person's capacity to decide their own physical autonomy and procreation. In the featured case, the victim continually suffered at the hands of her partner and aimed to have agency over her pregnancy. Gonzalez sought to terminate her pregnancy in order to escape her abusive partner, yet this decision only fueled her partner's anger and led to further violence. The tragic death of Gonzalez reminds us of what many reproductive health advocates have long voiced when it comes to matters of pregnancy, abortion bans, and intimate partner violence. In the United States, homicides are the leading cause of pregnancy-related deaths, especially among women of different races. Pregnant individuals often experience intimate partner violence, IPV, leading to unintended pregnancies and abortion requests, and those subjected to partner violence are more likely to have unintended pregnancies and seek abortions. Additionally, the Turnaway Study, led by Diana Green Foster at the University of California, San Francisco, reveals that individuals denied abortion care are more likely to stay in violent relationships compared to those who successfully terminate their pregnancies. What this tells us is that during the post-Roe wave of extreme abortion bans, victims of IPV are at higher risk. The narrative demonstrates that strict laws have made it challenging for these victims to decide their own pregnancies and access secure and legal medical services. In Texas, this problem is particularly severe. Survivors of IPV encounter reproductive control at a rate 3 times higher than the national average. Also, the state's abortion legislation doesn't include exceptions for cases of a rape or incest, which further harm the victims. Advocates for domestic violence organizations have cautioned that state abortion bans will only give more power to abusers and make them more confident. Thompson's violence against Gonzalez and the restrictive reproductive laws in Texas together represent a patriarchal system aiming to subordinate women to both men and the state. This system relies on traditional notions of masculinity, where men control women's bodies and reproduction. That when women assert control over their bodies, such as by deciding to terminate a pregnancy, there's a threat to male control. Right here, Gonzalez's death serves as a means to enforce patriarchal dominance over her body. Even if she had carried the unwanted pregnancy for long, statistics suggest that the abuse could have persisted or worsened. The studies indicate that domestic violence often intensifies when the woman becomes pregnant. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization report shows that between 1/4 and 1/2 of women surveyed in 15 different countries experienced direct abdominal trauma during pregnancy caused by their partners, and more than 90% of the assailants were the biological father of the unborn child. Furthermore, the account brings attention to the issue that sometimes law enforcement agencies might not provide the level of assistance required in domestic violence situations. The absence of intervention and support services cast a long shadow on the law enforcement landscape. Victims like Gonzalez yearn for more than just attention. They need access to a strong network of support services, such as therapy, legal aid, and a lifeline to escape from chains of abuse. The shortcomings here reveal an incomplete picture of the system's responsibility towards its citizens, and this absence of support led many victims to feel hopeless and made it challenging for them to break free from their abusers. Lastly, Gonzalez's tale demonstrates the influence of cultural elements. It features elevated occurrences of aggression against Latinas, and how societal norms contribute to gender-based violence and manipulation. Unfortunately, violence against Latinos is widespread. As per the CDC, 34.4% of Latinas encountered sexual violence, physical aggression, or stalking by an intimate partner during their lifetime. The likelihood of lethal outcomes in cases of domestic violence increase by 5 times when the victim is attempting to leave an abusive partner, while the risk of femicide also escalates when the abusive partner possesses a firearm and has a history of physical violence. The heart-wrenching story of Gabriella Gonzalez stands as a powerful and touching portrayal of the complexities and hurdles women encounter while grappling with the intricacies of personal autonomy, relationships marred by abuse, and the freedom to exercise their reproductive rights. As one reflects on the tragic series of events that led to her death, may it inspire everyone to advocate for societal changes that prioritize safety, support, and empowerment for victims of domestic violence, and affirm women's rights to make choices about their own bodies. After all, it's only through collective effort that there's hope to prevent such devastating stories from repeating themselves in the future.